Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm here today with the Department of Public Safety Secretary Craig Price. There are obviously a lot of questions involving the crash with the Attorney General Jason Ravnsborg and Mr. Joseph Beaver that happened on September 12th. We're here today to provide an update on the investigation, and with that, I'm going to turn it over to Secretary Price to walk you through all those details.
Thank you, Governor. Good afternoon. As Governor Noem noted, my name is Craig Price, and I'm the Cabinet Secretary for the South Dakota Department of Public Safety. We appreciate your patience as we work to finalize the investigation into the crash where Mr. Jason Ravnsborg, the Attorney General for the state of South Dakota, struck Mr. Joseph Beaver with his vehicle just west of Highmore on the evening of September 12, 2020, which resulted in the death of Mr. Beaver. The crash location was about 1/2 mile west of the junction of U.S. Highway 14 and South Dakota 47. Given the nature of this crash and the Attorney General's involvement, Governor Noem solicited the assistance of the North Dakota Bureau of Investigation. We also brought in a nationally recognized crash reconstruction expert from Wyoming, John Daly, with Jackson Hole Scientific Investigations, to work with our reconstruction experts. Today, I can walk you through some of the work that has been done in this investigation. Once our team became involved in the morning of September 13th, we ensured the crash scene was secure, and we began documenting and collecting evidence. South Dakota Highway Patrol troopers and North Dakota BCI agents were involved in that process. We are also forensic mapping the scene. Forensic mapping is a process in which we document the roadway, the edges of the road, lanes of travel, tire marks, and other physical facts that might be present. That information is used to create a 2-scale map of the scene. It's an important piece of the crash reconstruction work. As you can imagine, crash reconstruction is a thorough process that takes time. Like the reconstruction of the crash scene, the forensic examination of any evidence also takes a considerable amount of time. There's a lot of work that is still being done in this investigation, and progress is being made. An autopsy has been completed on Mr. Beaver in Ramsey County, Minnesota. We are still waiting a full report from their office. Mr. Ravnsborg has been interviewed by North Dakota BCI agents. Per his statement, Mr. Ravnsborg did provide a blood sample on Sunday afternoon, September 13th. So it could be processed for blood alcohol content. A victim coordinator with the South Dakota Highway Patrol's Crash Assistance Program has been assigned to support Mr. Beaver's family. Lastly, the crash occurred in Hyde County, so we have been working very closely with Hyde County Deputy State's Attorney Emily Sauvel. Ms. Sauvel also brought in 3 additional prosecutors to help her: Pennington County State's Attorney Mark Vargo, Minnehaha County State's Attorney Crystal Johnson, and Beetle County State's Attorney Michael Moore. At the conclusion of this press conference, we will be releasing 2 items: Mr. Ravnsborg's toxicology results, which show his blood alcohol content was 0. We will also be releasing the audio recording and transcript of the 911 call made by Mr. Ravnsborg, which was done after the crash on the evening of September 12, 2020. You will be able to find these 2 items on the Department of Public Safety's website, dps.sd.gov. I can also tell you that Mr. Beaver's cause of death, as outlined in a preliminary autopsy report, was traumatic injuries due to a pedestrian motor vehicle crash. Injuries were extensive both internally and externally. Additional details will be included in the final autopsy report. And again, that may still take several weeks to complete. As you've heard here today, this investigation is still ongoing. So this is what we were able to release at this time. As the governor has previously stated, the investigation will be released when it is complete and at the appropriate time. Again, we appreciate your patience, and I'm going to be happy to answer any questions. And before I take any questions, I just want to add that there's several questions in relation to the investigation that I may not be able to answer today because it is still ongoing. Please don't take that as though we're not being transparent and passing on the information that we have. So with that, I would take some questions.
When was that toxicology test taken? Blood sample, when was it taken?
From Mr. Ravnsborg, the blood was collected, I want to say roughly 1:30 the following day.
In your experience, how long does it take alcohol to sort of get out of someone's system?
I think what you would find if you did research on that, the body, a normal body, dissipates about 0.015% alcohol per hour. Yes, sir.
Can I ask about if there is any timeline and when the investigation will be completed, and how long the Department of Public Safety had the toxicology report, the preliminary cause of death, and anything else that there is today?
Okay. I'll take one question at a time, which back to your first question, if you could say it one more time. Thanks.
Any timeline and when the investigation will be completed?
Yeah, the question is there any timeline on when the investigation will be completed? As with any fatal crash report, there's a lot of variables that go into doing a thorough investigation. We have a standard goal in the agency, in the Highway Patrol, that we want to shoot for a 30-day turnaround time. But there's so many variables with each particular investigation. So with this one, we have variables such as we have North Dakota BCI agents that are working the case. For them to come to South Dakota and work in the Highmore and Pierre area, they spend a day traveling down here, stay for a couple days, travel home. We have the autopsy results that we're still waiting for from the Ramsey County Coroner's Office. Those things add to the complexity, and some things add to the timeline of what we're expected to do. So we'll continue to work diligently on that. We have officers that have worked on nothing else but this case since it took place. So I can assure you they're being diligent, getting through the work that needs to be done. And when it's done, it's going to be a very thorough product that is going to be fair.
And then if I can follow up as far as toxicology report, preliminary cause of death, and the 911 transcript. I mean, it's my understanding that you would probably have access to those within the week or so after his death. Tell me why we're having this update today, roughly a month after.
Yeah, it's a good question. So the question is why we're having an update today and not as opposed to when we were getting certain information throughout the work of the investigators. We felt that today was the best time to release the information that we're releasing. Of course, state statute guides when certain things need to be released, and we feel like that the release of the 911 tape does not in any way affect the investigation where we're at today. The toxicology results we felt were completed and fair to release, and the preliminary cause of death that we got from that preliminary autopsy report was fair to release that as well. So we take those things into consideration and balance it with where the investigation's at, the work that has been done, in balance with the work that yet needs to be done as we make those decisions.
Should a blood sample have been taken that night, and why wasn't it?
The question was, should a blood sample have been taken that night? And I'm not going to speculate on the work of others. I know that once our office became involved, which was the next day at around 10:30 when we got on scene, we worked efficiently to go ahead and get that information.
Has anything done with his phone?
So there's a lot of things in regards to the case that we're not going to be able to talk about. Conducting thorough investigations involves looking at a lot of different things. And again, I'm not going to get into the specifics other than what we've talked about here today as far as any of the investigative work that has been done.
Concerning the 911 call, were you able to gain anything from that?
Yeah, so the question is, were we able to gain anything from the 911 call? I think anytime you listen to a particular phone call, you get information from it. I think when you listen to the 911 call, which will be posted on our website at the conclusion of the press conference today, you'll be able to evaluate the 911 call for yourself.
Mr. Secretary, why
Yes, sir.
no release of the photo of the car that is involved or the accident scene photo? How would that harm the investigation at this point, since you're releasing these other items?
Yeah, good question. The question is, why are we not releasing pictures of the vehicle that Mr. Ravnsborg was driving or of the crash scene? And we make it a practice not to release pictures that are involved in fatal vehicle crashes before the appropriate time, if ever. So we decided we were not going to do that with this particular case. And the crash scene is still being investigated by reconstruction experts, so it'd be inappropriate to release any information in regards to the crash scene at this time.
In an investigation of this nature, what are the questions that you're trying to answer as investigators go through accident reconstruction, review the details surrounding the case? What are you trying to answer?
Yeah, good question, and that is, what are we trying to gain from conducting an investigation? And I think that what we are doing is we are gathering a set of facts. We want to be able to determine what happened that evening. We want to be able to determine what happened leading up to that evening, and we want to be able to determine what happened after that evening took place, so that we can put a full picture together of the facts that can be objectively reviewed for the benefit everybody involved.
Did you guys do a blood alcohol test on the victim?
I'm not going to talk about specific things that we have done with Mr. Beaver, but we have conducted an autopsy, and once those results come back, that will give you more information.
Is there a timeline on that autopsy?
Yeah, the question is there a timeline on the results from the autopsy? And about a week ago, maybe 10 days ago, they were still about 3 to 6 weeks out from getting us a full autopsy report. So when you think about an investigation and completing it and getting the information all wrapped together in whole, you want to have a full picture. And that's what we're doing before we move into that phase.
Mr. Price, is there any evidence from the scene in your preliminary investigation that suggests that Mr. Ravnsborg might have gone into the ditch with his vehicle, even if it's just a little bit?
Again, I appreciate the question, Don, but we're not going to talk about what we have determined from the scene or the specifics to the crash.
Do you think Mr. Beaver was walking to or from town when it started?
Again, I don't want to get into what I think may have happened because I don't know. That is going to be part of the complex investigation that we were doing, and the facts that you gather from that or that we gather from that will be available at the appropriate time.
Since his body was found inches from the road surface, and why it wasn't discovered that night?
I have no idea why.
Have you informed the family of these results prior to the news conference today?
That's a good question, and yes, we have. We developed the crash assistance program with the Highway Patrol back in, I want to say, 2012. Victims of crashes, I've been informed or notified of every fatality crash that's happened in our state for over 9 years. They happen a lot, way too often in my opinion, and taking care of and being advised and working with families is critically important.
And how much have you guys worked with the family for this entire project?
Well, I'm not going to get into specifics of how much we have worked with the family, but again, we dedicate staff to be working closely with them.
Other question, maybe for the governor, but whether or not there are charges eventually in this, I'm wondering if we can expect a press availability or written statement from the state's attorney on kind of explaining that decision down the line, if your office will be working with the state's attorney's office to make them available or explain that decision.
Well, I won't speak to this, what the state's attorney will be doing or what they'll be saying, but I am in charge of overseeing this case, and that's why I'm not prejudging the situation. I did commit to all of you that we would be transparent. We would give you information as soon as it was appropriate to do so, and that's one of the reasons that we're here today. The last press conference that we had with you, we talked about potentially a 30-day time period. We are 31 days out from the incident, and that's why we're here to give you as much information as we can that would be appropriate to release at this time.
Governor, why are you overseeing this case when you actually have oversight of the Attorney General's decision?
Well, I actually have oversight over who is doing the investigative process, which is the South Dakota Highway Patrol. They report to me, and that is why we brought in the North Dakota DCI to add some accountability to the investigative process, and then also brought in a reconstructionist that's highly recommended at the national level to give us some more benefit of having a clear picture in this specific case.
Governor, so the Attorney General continues to work, but not involved with the investigation. I'm wondering if that brings up anything. Do you think that he should take a paid leave while the investigation is ongoing? Has your office called for that in any way?
I won't weigh in on that.
Have you communicated with the AG, in your daily work?
Yeah. No, I have not. We have not spoken or exchanged any correspondence.
But he is not on administrative leave.
He is not at this time on administrative leave. You know, I don't oversee the Attorney General's office. That's not my scope of accountability and with his office, so that is his prerogative.
Governor, we've heard you ask the Attorney General to step down in days after the crash. Is that true?
That is not true.
Okay, one more question.
Well, Governor, I'd like to ask you about the recent data just came out about hospitalizations in Sioux Falls that indicated 100% capacity in the Sioux Falls area. Your reaction to that? And then also a follow-up to that would be, your critics are saying that you shouldn't be out campaigning for President Trump when we're having COVID-19 record numbers here in South Dakota.
Well, our record numbers that you're talking about are actually just reflective of the amount of testing that we're doing. We have tripled the amount of testing that we're doing in the state of South Dakota, which is why you're seeing elevated positive cases. That's normal, that's natural, that's expected. I've told you for 6 months there would be days I could potentially be standing in front of you reporting thousands of new cases in the state of South Dakota. All of our efforts in partnership with the people of the state have been to focus on hospital capacity. So in talking with our healthcare systems, our providers, they say they're in good shape, that they do have capacity, that COVID-19 patients are not the reason that they're seeing more beds being utilized, that it's other factors, and some of it is delay of treatment from people staying home for so long during this pandemic. But we're working and communicating with them on a daily, sometimes hourly basis to make sure that there are beds available. And remember, the National Guard was heavily engaged in standing up in having available to us in a very short time period the capacity to add more beds should they be needed. And that's not necessary at this time. So our Sanford, Monument, Avera have been fantastic to work with, and so we're coordinating with them to make sure that we're on top of it statewide.
Can you address President Trump, campaign for President Trump? Your critics are saying you should not be doing that when we're having all these cases of COVID-19.
Well, if we do not focus on the election as well, and President Trump is not in office, there are consequences to that for our state of South Dakota. We will be back facing regulations. We will be back looking at a lot of the challenges we saw going after waters of the U.S., OSHA regulations that cost our businesses money. The tax reform will be undone. South Dakotans will have less money in their pockets. Healthcare costs could escalate as well with what they're talking about as far as new burdens on those that deliver health care. So in South Dakota, the protections that we've had in place the last several years, we'd like to continue to utilize so that we can continue to grow our economy.